All right, got a 2007 Honda Accord in here. The axle actually snapped on this on the driver's side. It's pretty common on these. I've seen a lot of these Honda Accords, especially. I heard the Fits do it. I haven't personally seen it on a Honda Fit, but I know the Honda Accord a lot. The axle snaps right in the middle. Seems like it's always on the driver's side. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and remove this one and replace it. I'm also going to do struts on this car. So we'll have, I guess, two videos, one for the axle and one for the struts, but I may point certain things out as I go, so that I might have to meld these two videos together. I'm not sure. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and pull the front wheel off of this and start pulling that axle out, the broken axle. So I'll get into it and we'll show you what's going on. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and take my brake lines loose from the arm right here. You may not have to do that necessarily, but I'm going to take this top ball joint out and bring this forward. So you don't want all that pressure on your lines. And actually, you probably will because there's not a lot of slack here. So that's the first thing I do usually on these is just take these 10mm bolts out on the brake line. That was almost ready to break. So that'll free your caliper up to move. We're not going to take the caliper off, but that just frees up. Gives you a little bit of room. Then you got your speed sensor here, and there's two on this side. I'm going to go ahead and run those off because I don't want to damage those. One here, and then there's one up here. Alright, so I just went in and shut that off because of the air compressor kicking on. So you're going to have a lot of slack now. You get these two out. I'm going to go ahead and take the cotter pin out of this top ball joint. So I'm going to separate this from the upper control arm. And then we're going to move on to the wishbone on the strut. Now, like I said, I am going to take the strut out on this side. So I'll show you how to do that without taking the strut out. But on this car, the strut's coming out, so I'm going to do it a little bit different on this side, but I'll show you the right way to do it without taking the strut out. I don't know why. 17mm. I don't know why all my sockets got mixed up in my little roll around. So it should be 17mm on that ball joint. It's still a factory one. I'm just going to leave it down about right there. And then we're going to hit on this arm here, but we're going to try to avoid the boot and all that and hit around it. That should shock it loose. So I can find a spot, put my light. There you go. So now that that's loose, this arm will come back far enough to get the axle out. And you can see, I don't know if you can see actually, right here the axle is broken in half. And it seems like that's where they always break it half, as this little rubber weight thing or whatever it is. It's almost like condensation stuff gets in this. It kind of holds it in, then it just kind of rusts off in half. So the next thing you're going to do, if you're not changing the strut, is get your wishbone loose right here. And that's a 17mm nut and bolt. And we're going to go ahead and get that. So I got to open it on the other side, and I'm going to put my impact on this side. And kind of do the same thing I did. Ball joint, I'm just going to put it back on there a little bit, and then use the hammer and drive it out the other side. Hopefully it's not rusted. Sometimes these get pretty rusty. And this one's actually not very rusty at all. Came right out, which is lucky because sometimes they can really get a lot of rust in there and they're hard to get out. So I'm just going to take my opening and put it on the other side of the bolt and use my impact and just kind of run it the rest of the way out. And that's a good little trick. I'll show you that real quick. It's actually a good little trick to keep your hands and all that stuff from getting hurt. So I'll take you down there real quick and show you. So all I'm doing right here is just putting my wrench in between the open end part of the wrench, in between the wishbone and the socket, and I'm going to run it out. I'm just going to use the wrench as kind of like leverage to get it out the rest of the way. That usually works pretty well on these. There's some rust on here, but anyway, now your wishbone and your axle are disconnected from each other. Now, you don't want to pull on this yet. It doesn't really matter, I guess, because you're not going to reuse your axle. But if you're going to reuse your axle, you wouldn't want to pull on it. So we'll go ahead and get a 36mm socket here and take this loose, and then we should be able to drive this out. All right, we're kind of weird because this axle looks new right here. This nut looks newer, and this end of the axle looks newer. But if you look into the actual axle, it's not. So I don't know if someone replaced a nut at one time or... And all I'm going to do is just kind of put that back on there a little bit. And get my hammer again. Hopefully it dries out and not seized in. So it's going. Sometimes these can get pretty rusted in there. This one's going. So at this point, you may be able to pull it out, or you may have to get like a drift or something, and push it the rest of the way in. It makes it a little bit easier that mine's broken half like this, but it will come out like this, the way this is set up. Oh, you know what? See, mine's coming out because it's broken half, but I don't know if this goes down far enough. Okay, it does. So usually you have to remove your lower sway bar here to get this wishbone to clear the axle, and it seems like it might go down far enough without doing that. I guess we'll find out when I put it back in. If you have to remove your sway link there, it's usually a 15 mil on these, or 14. That makes the control arm come down easier, but it almost looks like we got enough room without doing that to so just avoid that, because a lot of times those are seasoned, they're pretty good. The stabilizer link, and then you probably put an Allen wrench in here or whatever, and it just strips out. And these look pretty old, so we'll see if we can avoid that. So now we're going down underneath it and get the lower, or the other half of the axle out. We're under the transmission here. I'm going to kind of show you the gist of what I'm doing. I got a regular pickle fork here, and all you're doing is getting up between the transmission and the axle. You're going to put it in there carefully and kind of get it in between the two. And then you're going to hit it up with a hammer lightly, and it should separate it enough to where you can, oops, got too much fluid coming out. I knew it was going to come out. I didn't think it would be that much, so I'm going to put this back in for a second. So you're just going to get it in there enough to separate it. And then like it is now, obviously it's separated, there's fluid coming out. So you just tap up on the pickle fork, and then once it separates a little bit, you can kind of like move the pickle fork away from you and kind of pry it, and then the axle will come out. I'm actually going to leave this in there until I get the new axle so I don't lose that much transmission fluid. Honda takes a special transmission fluid. It's like $9 a quart. So we're going to try to save as much as we can and do this quickly. So I'll wait till the other one gets here, and then we'll just swap it out. But that's how you get those out. All right, so I went ahead and pulled the rest of that axle out real quick when I got the new one and slid it in there. When you slide in there, make sure you don't mess up your seal. Make sure you put that shaft in real straight into the transmission and don't nick or clip the side of that seal. So I went ahead and got it in and slid it in here. And I got the, well, you're not going to have to worry about this, so never mind. I'm thinking of the strut job. So now all we're going to do is just put the bottom in down here with the 17, and then we'll put this in the rest of the way and start putting it back together. I was thinking, I actually had this completely off because I'm doing the strut on this, obviously, like I said before, so anyway, that's a different video. So once you get it back in here, you're going to take a pry bar, big pry bar, and pull down on the control arm. It does help if you got that stabilizer link disconnected. I didn't have to, but I barely got it in there. You want to be real careful with your boot. You don't want to rip that. So that's the big concern there. It's probably easier to just take that stabilizer link off and that way you get more room to drop this down and then get this axle back up into this fork here. So anyway, that's what I did. I actually had the fork off because I'm changing the strut, but in my opinion, it'd probably be easier to take the stabilizer link off, 15 millimeter nut, and that way it gives you more room to pull this down and get the axle back where it's supposed to be. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and line this bottom bolt up, find the bolt for it, line it back up, and then we'll start putting it back together. Back on the control arm here and just jack it up just a hair to get it lined up, and then it's like it's still not lined up all the way, so I might have to get a drift on the other side. But I just took and tapped it back a little bit. May have to go up actually. Let me see. Don't want to beat too hard on this bolt and mess the threads up. So let me get it lined up a little bit better, and then we'll put the bolt all the way through. All right, so we got it through. Just a little bit of persuasion and using the jack, and then a little bit of persuasion with the sledge. Not too much, so like I say, you don't want to mess up the threads. So it's just 17 mil, and we're just going to go ahead and run that tight. Alright, and now next thing we're going to do is, you probably need the jack for this too. We're going to jack up. I went ahead and just got this kind of hand tight. I'm just going to snug it for now. And we're going to just connect these two back together, the upper control arm and this knuckle here. So I'm just going to use the jack and jack it up a little bit. That'll make it easier for me to get it started. I just got the jack under the control arm a little bit. And we're just going to jack it up enough to get that upper control arm started, which should be about right there. Let me find the nut real quick, and then we'll just tighten that up. All right, so we just got to start. We're just going to zip it up. And it looks pretty close. So go ahead and put a new cotter pin, put a new one in if you got one. If you did take your stabilizer link off on the bottom, now's a good time to put that back on. And then I'll get the torque specs for this axle nut, and then we just got to put these 10 millimeters back in for the brake lines, and we're basically done. Just got the bolts back started for your brake line brackets. And I know some people freak out when I use impact, or they'll make comments here and there. I can't believe we use an impact on a 10 millimeter nut or bolt or something. I've been doing this a very long time, and I use the same impacts and tools every single day. And I know how to use them and kind of feather them. If you're not comfortable doing that, then just use a ratchet or whatever. But if you do this every single day, and I've been doing it for a very long time, and use the same tools, you get a feel for it, and you know where the breaking point is for these bolts and stuff like that usually. So anyway, that's why I use an impact. It's quicker, and they're tight, but they're not too tight where they're breaking. So anyway, I'm gonna put the axle nut on. I'll get the torque spec for that real quick, and then we will be done. Put this wheel back on and get this thing going. All right, so this nut's 181 foot-pounds. You should be able to just tighten it down without putting the wheel on or anything like that, or even if the transmission's in park, it should hold it, put it down. 181 foot-pounds, and you're going to stake the nut, and then that's pretty much it for driver's side axle on a 2007 Honda Accord. I think it's 2003 or 2007 are all the same, or 2008. So this is the driver's side. The passenger side's similar. I think there's an intermediate shaft on the passenger side, if I'm not mistaken, but it's pretty similar as far as all this stuff up here goes. So anyway, that's about it for a Honda Accord. I am going to do a strut video. I will be doing a strut video after this one. So if you're looking for do struts or something, or do this all at once, check that video out. So anyway, thanks for watching. As always, God bless.